lied down last night laughing, woke up this morning screaming and crying. Yes, I lied down last night laughing, woke up this morning screaming and crying. Said I was worrying and grieving, but that girl had done left me behind. I said she's gone and left me, sitting on my bed. I said she's gone and left me, sitting on my bed. Said that I didn't have nobody, Lord, to hold my worried head. Play now, boy, play for me. Says I don't care when you go, mama, don't care how long you stay. I said I don't care when you go, mama, don't care how long you stay. Said that old good kind treat me, baby, bring you back home to me someday.
Blind Boy Fuller was one of those South Carolina guitarists in the same style as Floyd Council, and Floyd Council played second guitar for Fuller, and in the same vein as Reverend Gary Davis, although Reverend Gary Davis was the master, and in fact he did teach Blind Boy Fuller for some time. Gary Davis himself was taught in part, or at least was influenced greatly by a man called Willie Walker, another South Carolina guitarist, who supposedly was the great granddaddy of them all, the best there ever was, according to Gary Davis. But you can hear Gary Davis's intricate thumb work and certain riffs in Fuller's playing, and also in Council's playing. So obviously Gary Davis had a massive impact on these players. The great thing about Fuller's playing and singing is the way that his singing, his lyrics and his voice match with the guitar work. Sometimes they seem asynchronous, which means that the words, the timing doesn't arrive at the same time as a note on the guitar. It seems to be truly independent, which is a really good trick. Robert Johnson had it, Big Bill Broonzy had it, and of course Reverend Gary Davis had it. He was a style of guitarist they call Piedmont, or Piedmont, however you pronounce it, which is a kind of a ragtime style, but it's a little bit different from a straight ragtime style. A real ragtime guitarist, whether a modern guitarist or an older style guitarist, would alternate his thumb between 2 or 3 basses, and generally that would be the way the thumb behaved all the way through the tune or the song. In this Piedmont style, this nice slow raggy style, sometimes the thumb doesn't follow that pattern. The thumb can break away from it, move over to the treble strings, or else completely stop and then pick up a little bit later on, and it all adds to this kind of raggy syncopated effect that we've come to associate with Fuller's playing. Screaming and Crying is a really nice one to cut your teeth on, because it does sound very intricate, but basically for most of the time, when the fingers are playing the single string runs on the high notes, the high strings, then the thumb stops. Sometimes it carries on when it's not so complicated, but generally the two movements, the two actions are separated, which is great for us. Because bear in mind that once we learn how to play this thing, we've got the big challenge of trying to sing at the same time. And later on we'll talk about this and how to dumb it down a little bit and maybe move away from the way that Fuller plays it just a little to make it easier for us to sing. If you want to sing, that is. Now first of all we have a C chord, and sometimes we'll play the small C, as I call it, and other times we'll move that finger across to the lower bass E string. Generally, when playing ragtime or Piedmont songs, we leave the little finger, the pinky, free to move around to create these bends and these other little riffs on the treble notes. So we keep that pinky free whether we're playing a D7, an F, or whatever chord that we use. We're also going to use a D7 in one place. We're going to move up the fretboard and play this chord, which is a kind of a D7. The real D7 in this inversion is this. And we will play this in the actual verse. In the intro, we move that D7 into this chord, which sounds discordant, but the way that we're going to use our picking fingers, we're going to get over that little problem by not using that string. We're going to use an ordinary G chord and a G7 chord, both in this simple form and in this form, which is nice because it's fuller. I don't mean blind boy fuller, I mean it's just sounds richer and fuller. And that's about it. We're going to move up the fretboard with single strings, and in one part we shall play a kind of an E7 inversion, which is this. And later on you'll see how that fits into the overall structure. So the trick is that we're going to take this sound, which sounds fairly complex, break it down into phrases as usual, and you'll see my hands in close-up with the tablature. So we'll break it down and play it really slowly, and then we'll hook them all together to show how we can make it fluent and make it move along before we start to try and sing with it. You see I've got my cap on the second fret, and this is because it really suits my voice, and it also makes the fingering a little bit easier. First of all, I'm going to play the whole thing, or rather I'm going to play the introduction and then one of the verses, the first verse, and I'm actually going to sing with the verse, so I'll play it at a slightly slower pace than Blind Boy Fuller, and that'll give you some idea of where we're going and how the words fit in. I laid down last night laughing, I woke up screaming and crying. I laid down last night laughing, I woke up screaming and crying. And I was dreaming and worrying, that girl I love, she left me behind. That gives you some idea of how the song flows, and maybe you could see from that that the riffs that are used while I'm singing are just a dumbed down version, slightly dumbed down version of the riffs that we use in the intro. Now there's instrumental break, which basically is very much the same as the introduction, and you can vary it as you get more used to the song and it starts to move fluently. Let's take a look now at my hands in close-up as we learn how to play Screaming and Crying by Blind Boy Fuller. Take it easy, have a lot of fun, and good luck. Let's take a look now at how we can sing along with Screamin and Cryin, because when you first hear it you think, oh my goodness, there's a lot going on with the fingers, with the thumb and the single string runs, and you're supposed to start singing along with it. And this is always the problem with a Piedmont, a ragtime kind of style, where you're playing these single string runs and you're supposed to sing at the same time and look as though it's easy. And this is part of the style. Now you notice that when I sing it, or maybe you didn't notice, but when I sing, I've noticed that most of the people fuller and other blues players like Johnson, Big Bill Broomsey, they'll either stop the single string run when they sing, or they'll simplify it, they'll dumb it down. Now this is what Fuller and people like Reverend Gary Davis did. They played some really nice single string runs, and when they started to sing, sometimes they'd run pieces out so that it was easier to sing with. Fuller did this in a few places, but really Reverend Gary Davis didn't need to do that. He could really play anything as complex as he liked while he sang, so he was quite an exception. Now as we finish the introduction, we finish up on this run. And we start to sing on this note. Here it goes, I'll play it really slowly. I laid down last night laughing, I woke up screaming and crying. So we start to sing on this note here. I woke up last night laughing, excuse me, I went to bed last night laughing. So I try and get the sentence over really before I start to get into the single string run. I went to bed last night laughing. So really I'm starting to start the single string run after the words are almost finished. I went to bed last night laughing, I woke up screaming and crying. Now I was dreaming and worrying, that girl I love, she left me behind. I went to bed last night laughing, I woke up screaming and crying. I went to bed last night laughing, I woke up screaming and crying. Now I was dreaming and worrying, that girl I love, she left me behind. I don't care where you go, mama, I don't care where you stay. I don't care where you go, mama, I don't care where you stay. Now the way that I treat you, you'll be coming back some old day. Now what I do when I'm singing, particularly if I'm singing out on the street or in public, I can make the words up. And if the words don't quite fit with these single string runs, not being as clever with the words as Brian Boy Fuller, who was quite asynchronous in the way that he sang, because his words could land with a note or off a note or in between two notes. And because for us modern guitarists, it's much easier to sing one word on a note or in between a note. So what I do is I vary the amount of the words in the verse. So I change a little bit. I add some words or take some words out, so that those lyrics, when I sing the lyrics, I sing a word directly on a note or in between two notes. I hope that helps. And of course there's nothing like getting into it and just trying it out. You'll find, as you could probably hear with my rendition, when I try and do it slowly and think about what I'm doing, it becomes more difficult. So that's the paradox. You need to think about it when you start to do this until it becomes fluent, and then when you can play it up to speed, you try not, or you don't have to think about it too much. But when you concentrate on the timing and your fingers and where the words are going to go, sometimes you get the timing correct, and then the tune suffers. So there's a third thing to think about: the timing, the guitar picking, where the words are going to land on the notes. And have you got the tune right? And very often I don't get the tune right. Not as the original guitar players, the original bluesmen sang it. So I just change it a little bit so that it fits and it feels comfortable with me. I hope that's helped you. Take it easy, have fun, nice and slowly, and I'll see you the next time. Bye bye.